And welcome on into another edition of Cards Hub 365 here on Sports Hub STL. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Ryan Fagan, making his debut here on Sports Hub STL, the 9-time Hall of Fame voter. Ryan, what's going on, man? Thanks for being part of the team and what we're doing here on Sports Hub STL.
I'm very excited to be part of this. When you first told me about it, I was like, hey, that sounds pretty cool. It sounds like something that could be needed that fans could really enjoy. So I'm very much looking forward to digging in with you on Fridays, maybe more as things go along. But yeah, it's going to be good. And the good thing, Joe, is now if you wanted to try out for the Yankees, you could.
I can. It says well groomed.
That's groomed.
Okay. Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. The hair
maybe
might
not well
be,
groomed, but it's groomed.
Yeah, the hair might be a little too long.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah.
That might
I don't have that problem
too, but yeah, that is that's a good point. Cardinals begin play tomorrow in spring training. So as Claves was talking about all week, we don't have to we don't have to find storylines. We don't have to sit there and go after storylines. All of your years when you were writing for the Sporting News, how many spring trainings did you cover?
Oh man, I used to go down. I probably went down to 11 or 12, and sometimes I go to Florida and Arizona. My favorite thing to do was do the spring training road trips. I think one time in Florida, I did the most I ever did was 15 and 11 days, something like that. In Arizona, you can do more than that, obviously, because everything's right there in Phoenix. You know, you're just going from Scottsdale to Peoria. It was a lot easier. I would try to get down there at the beginning of spring whenever possible. I mean, you know, you've been there. That's when you have more access to players, you know, because the games aren't going on. So you can see them kind of interacting more than just on the field. So, yeah, I mean, the beginning of spring training, it's very exciting. In the grand scheme, I'm not sure how much it matters in terms of wins and losses. Not at all. But it is fun. You know, I mean, as a baseball fan, you know, I grew up a baseball fan. It's just cool to have it back, especially, you know, since it's like -3 here in St. Louis right now. It's cool to think about baseball.
Yesterday, or I guess all week, I was down there. I was down in Jupiter with Mike Claiborne, with Brendan Schaefer from our team here. You, as you mentioned, you were not down there.
Yes.
So one of the things I asked you when we were talking about the show today, what intrigues you about the 2025 St. Louis Cardinals as they sit here now on February 22nd or 21st?
If I'm being honest, what intrigues me is not what they look like now. What intrigues me is what they could look like. And that could be 2 years down the road. That could be a year down the road. More specifically for the terms of today is, what do they look like in 2 months, right? I don't care who the opening day center fielder is, because it doesn't matter in the terms of the Cardinals and what they're going to be as a franchise going forward. And so when I think about this season and who they're going to be, I keep coming back to Victor Scott. Right. I think Victor Scott, if the Cardinals are going to be their best selves, Victor Scott is a big part of that. You know, and I go back to the winter warmup when he was talking to the media, and he sat there for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. And it was fascinating listening to him talk about what he was last year, good and bad, what he wants to be this year, and what he did in the offseason. And the thing that impressed me most was how many times he used the word study. I meant to go back and count it up, or at least go through Otter and kind of search for the word study. But, you know, he literally had a notebook. Probably wasn't this notebook, but he had a notebook that he kept with him, and he made notes. He studied the game. He watched the game. He made notes. He took batting practice. He made notes. And this is something, as a reporter, I really it resonated with me, because you intake things differently when you write it down. Pen and paper, there's something there. And the fact that he did that this offseason was something that Willie McGee told him, suggested he do it. That was really impressive to me. And that this was a guy who has a lot of talent. Obviously, last year was not what he wanted outside of the debut. But the talent is there, and he's showing me that work ethic is there, and not just the physical work ethic, but the mental work ethic. And to me, that's the kind of guy that, if you're looking at difference makers on this team down the road, I think he's right at the top of that list.
And with that, with Nolan Arenado still being on the roster right now, Victor Scott is one of those guys that seems like he is the odd man out. This is something we were trying to go over, who the 13 position players were going to be on opening day. And Victor Scott seems to be that guy, because you look at it and it's, with everything moving around, does that mean Lars Nootbaar is now your left fielder, or your center fielder, which means Michael Ciani, Victor Scott, they're fighting for a spot, maybe even that 13th spot that you're trying to figure out. So one of these guys, it seems, is going to be down in Memphis, and based on last year's performance, you would think that's probably going to be Victor Scott down there, but there's a lot of spring training games now, and we have seen, Victor Scott earned that opening day spot from what he did last year in spring training, plus an injury to Dylan Carlson. Victor Scott elevated himself to there.
And if he winds up there, if best case scenario for the Cardinals happens, right, and Ciani has a good spring offensively, shows he's making more solid contact, his exit velocities are where they want him to be. If Lars Nootbaar stays healthy, if all these things happen and Victor Scott shows that his offseason of work mattered and it actually was good, and he starts in Memphis, that's okay. Because again, it's not about where the Cardinals are on opening day. It's about, with Arenado here, that changes the equation a little bit, because with Arenado here, I really do think he's going to be better this year than he was last year. He was not good last year by his standards. He's not done as a player. I really do think that that's true. Now, is he going to be, a top 5 MVP candidate like he was at his peak? No. But is he going to be a guy who, whether it's for the Cardinals or somewhere else, is in that conversation for all-star type thing? Yeah, I think that's reasonable to expect. He's not 50. Right. He's not my age. He still has some left in the tank.
So with that being said, so Victor Scott is your pick then for center field. Give me your
long term, not opening day.
I want to talk just for this. Let's talk June. Let's say Cardinals are 5 games over 500 in June.
So we're staying in best case scenario world.
Yes, we are. Okay. Yeah, this is all best case, because my question kind of leads to that. What is your ideal outfield then for the 2025 Cardinals?
The ideal outfield is it has to be, Jordan Walker showing that he's the guy they think he is, right? Hitting. Again, he came in, he had a good offseason. He sounded like he had a good offseason. It's Scott in center, best case scenario, Walker and Nootbaar on the corners. Mm-hmm. And where does that leave Brendan Donovan? I don't know. He's in there every day, right? That's not the question.
Right.
He's in there every day. Is he sometimes playing, taking turns in the corner outfield, taking turns at second, filling in at third? If Arenado is still here, that's a question. But I think that best case scenario for the Cardinals long term are those 3 in the outfield, and then Donovan somewhere, because at that point something has happened to Nolan Arenado.
Outside, because we had Michael Ciani on earlier this week, and talking with him about just the way he prepares, and looking at last year, Michael Ciani kind of put up Gold Glove numbers in center field. Victor Scott has the speed, and as you kind of go through here and you handicap what the pros and cons are of every player, I guess Lars Nootbaar is that offensive. He has that best offensive output, but Lars Nootbaar has to stay healthy, which kind of puts him ideally third on my list of who I would like out there, because you do have, you have Alec Burleson, you have Brendan Donovan out there for the outfield. You have Jordan Walker, who you assume is just going to be that everyday right fielder. And best case scenario, he's there hitting 5th or 6th in your lineup,
right? And
you can't take him out at all. You do have, it is a question of, okay, pros and cons of every day of who is going to be playing out there. But I think just based off what we saw last year, to start off, I would give that, I'd put Ciani out there in center field on day one. If you're making that opening day lineup right now, I would have him out there. I'd have Donovan in left and Walker in right. Like Lars Nootbaar is my odd man looking out right now when it comes to the way I'm putting together the Cardinal 25 season. I think a lot of that too is the injuries that he's had, and
he's got to stay healthy,
right? And when you look at everything there, you would hope best case scenario that Wilson Contreras hits better this year, and Nolan Arenado hits better, and Mason Wynn hits better, and Nolan Gorman doesn't strike out as much. And if all of that happens, you don't need Lars Nootbaar's bat to be that important with everything.
You know, it's funny, you mentioned injuries, and one of the things we would do every spring at Sporting News in the decade plus that I covered baseball for them from the national perspective, right? Not necessarily looking at the individual teams. We would look at, and sometimes we would write about, but we would always talk about position battles and these things that, oh, team X has 6 guys for these 4 spots. How are they going to deal with it? We would do that at the beginning of spring, coming into spring. You know how many times those things actually became a problem? Almost never.
Injuries
because
always seem to,
injuries
always seem
it's
to
so
work.
funny how that happens.
You know, when you're looking at, I mean, even the regular season, we're like, oh, this guy's making rehab starts in the minors. Who are you going to send down? Somehow baseball, you know, that's how baseball go. Somebody is going to end up getting hurt, and it works its way out. Hey, your comments are welcome in the YouTube chat. I'd like to know, I mean, if who is your ideal Cardinal outfield? What is your ideal 3 Cardinal outfielders? What is your ideal opening day center fielder? Weigh in on the YouTube chat and let us know who you want to see out there for the year. Also, let us know too. We have this is Studio B, Ryan.
Yes.
This is the first show, the debut show that we are doing from Studio B here at Sports Hub STL. So still, we have not shown off Studio C yet, but you've seen Studio A with Randy and Brooke in the morning. You see Studio B right now. Let us know your thoughts on that with the neon sign too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm blocking that.
No, you're fine. But you see Studio B for that. But yeah, weigh in on the chat. I just they're going to play tomorrow. How much stock are you going to put into that lineup tomorrow when you see what Ali Marmol comes out with?
0. Absolutely nothing.
Really?
Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Long term, nothing.
I do. So we have seen over the years with Ali, he does have, it's like half the starters on one day, half the starters on the next day. And it goes back and forth. So maybe not as much intrigue tomorrow, maybe more intrigue on Sunday to see who the first 2 center fielders are.
I honestly, having done this as long as I have, it doesn't, and that's why I even talk about opening day. Everybody talks about opening day roster. Who made the opening day roster? It's cool. It's a lot of fun to talk about. But what happens on day 1 of the regular season? I mean, yes, it has something to do with who's going to be there. But I mean, how many times have we seen in the last couple of years someone be part of the opening day roster in St. Louis and elsewhere, and then a couple weeks later, gone, right? Sent down, traded, and all sorts of things happen. Their roster machinations have to happen, and it just, look, I love it. It's like, honestly, the openings of spring training games is as much for the fans as anyone, because we are so starved for actual baseball that it's just great to see these guys out there. And what you want to do is you really just want to see injuries avoided. I mean, you look at the game yesterday and Bobby Miller from the Dodgers takes a comebacker right in the face, and you're like, that's disaster scenario. It's great to see him stand up and get out of there. But I mean, that's really what you want. And I don't mean to put a damper on opening day and opening day of spring training, but that's, if we're talking about what really matters, I'm not sure how much it does.
Look at the YouTube chat here. This one is, I completely disagree with this, but in just the thought that's out there by some fans, trade Donovan. He's the one guy you can sell high on and get a return for. Having him out of the picture clears up the position backlog.
It would do that. I don't think it's a good idea.
No,
but it would. Look, I mean, here's the thing. Brendan Donovan is the kind of guy who, to the point of value, right? Every single contending team in Major League Baseball right now would love to have a hitter with his eye, with his approach at the plate, with his ability to play multiple positions defensively very, very well at a Gold Glove level. Absolutely, he would be the type of player you could trade. But he's young enough. I know he just had the arbitration, but he's still Cardinals aren't 6 years away from contending, right? He's very much in their plans to be back in the playoff mix, whether it's next year or the year after that. They're probably secretly still hoping. I know Sonny Gray talked about it at the winter warm-up. I don't see this. I don't see that we're not going to contend. So Brendan Donovan's part of that. I don't know, even though every team would want him, I don't think he would bring back enough of an impact return to make it an offer you can't refuse for the Cardinals.
Right now, I think too, it's his clubhouse.
Yeah, there's something to that.
He is the he's the kind of de facto leader of that Cardinal locker room right now. So I do think that would be that's just not even on the table.
No, I don't think so. I guarantee they've gotten calls. I mean, I don't know that, but I'm sure teams have reached out and said, "Hey, how much are you resetting? How big is that reset button?"
Right.
But I don't think there's any appetite for 1,000 reasons.
And apparently it's more popular than I thought. As Patrick chimes in, yes, to trade Donovan, every contender would want Donovan, and the Cardinals are not contending right now. So 40% of baseball makes the playoffs right now.
It's a lot.
It is. That's a high number right there. And sure, you might just be playing 2 games on the road, 3 games on the road in that wild card round, and you're not getting the revenue of hosting a playoff game, but all it takes is 2 wins before you're then back to hosting a playoff game. So the odds of it are fairly high. So that I don't think right now is a point where you want to look at things and say that they're not contenders.
And again, to trade Donovan, this is not what I thought we'd be talking about
today. No, neither did I.
That's part of the fun, right? to trade Donovan, he doesn't make enough to have any real benefit to the books to move him. B, as much as teams would like to have him, they're not going to overpay for him.
Right.
You're not going to get a top 30 prospect from Fangraphs, Baseball America, or MLB.com pipeline. You're not going to get one of those guys for Brendan Donovan. You're going to get, nothing worthwhile. Nothing worth the Cardinals doing it.
Right.
You bring back some good players, sure, but there are a lot of things in there too that I cannot imagine them even having a conversation.
We will. That's one. Again, I didn't think we were going to talk about it either, but when the chat wants to talk about it, we will throw those out there and we will talk about that with you. Hey, hopefully many of you from the chat, we will see you next Thursday out at Hot Shots for our big kickoff party next week over at Hot Shots, the brand new Hot Shots. Mark your calendars for February 27th, the Sports Hub STL kickoff party. The event will take place at the new Hot Shots on Lindbergh in Lime. Come out and meet the Sports Hub STL team and enjoy great food and drink specials. The party will start at 6:00 as the Blues drop the puck on the road against Washington. We'll watch the game together, have great prize giveaways, and the Blues Hub postgame show will broadcast live on site immediately following the game. That's Thursday night, February 27th, starting at 6 p.m. at the new Hot Shots on Lindbergh in Lime. Hot Shots, St. Louis's home for all of the games, all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshotsnet.com. That the outfield discussion, as I said, is we threw it out there to the chat. That is your most intriguing thing that you are looking forward to in spring training.
It's what I'm here.
Anything as far as the pitching goes with the Cardinals?
Well, first of all, now that you're talking about Hot Shots and got me thinking about their pizza. Did you know that there's a Hot Shots in North Carolina?
They're all
north
over the place.
North of Charlotte.
They're all over the place.
As you know, I lived in Charlotte for 10 years, and I was driving up. It's up by Lake Norman, up in Mooresville, and I saw a sign for Hot Shots. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me! This is where we used to go after softball games when I lived out in St. Charles." And
the boys got them all over the place.
Yeah, it was one of the first franchisees, and the owner is a guy who saw a commercial on a Cardinals game that said, "Do you want a Hot Shots franchise?" And he said, "Yes, I do." So yeah, every once in a while we'll go up there. I mean, Mooresville is, I think it was like 45 minutes, 6 hours, depending on traffic.
Be there next.
And
we'll be there next
I would
Thursday
go there.
night.
They had the T-Ravs. They had the St. Louis style pizza. It was great.
And it'll be a later show for you on Friday too. Next Friday.
Yes.
It's a 3 p.m. start. Starting tomorrow, we'll start doing Cards Hub 365 around 3 p.m. or so. We're gonna wait for the spring training games to end. Not officially a post-game show.
Right.
We're just going to do it after the game is over with, just in case there's storylines or anything. We will not be breaking down the 6th inning of a spring training game at the end of February. I can almost guarantee that.
Although I think we should have like an award for like the best player wearing number 70 or above who performed in that game. I think that'd be fun.
So yeah, that's not the plan of going late. We just are not going to compete against be doing a show while the Cardinals are on, or before the game either. So we'll do it a little later in the day, but just a programming note tomorrow for you. Also a program note too. I mean, it is a day chock full of sports tomorrow here on Sports Hub STL. You have the Cards Hub 365. That'll be around 3. Billikens game will end around 3:30, 3:45. And then tomorrow night, you have Blues first game back after the Four Nations face-off. You have Mizzou after they beat Arkansas. And then you have City SC, their first game. So we will be going post-game for all of those games tomorrow right here on Sports Hub STL. Also, keep your YouTube notifications up and keep those. Make sure you are subscribed and you know when we go live here on YouTube for Cards Hub 365 and all of our shows here on Sports Hub STL. So I was talking about the pitching.
Yep.
It's as I was talking to somebody earlier about it, and when you look at it, I mentioned this a lot of times to Rammer last year. I wanted to see Michael McGreevy as the number 2 this year. And I said that at the end of last year. Watching him last year, I wanted Michael McGreevy to be my number 2 after Sonny Gray. You see what moves were made or not made in the offseason. So now you have Sonny Gray, you have Eric Fetty, you have Andre Palante, you have Miles Michaelis, you have Steven Matz right now. So McGreevy, contractually looking at the Cardinals, maybe not talent-wise, but based on who's getting paid, is probably in Memphis.
Right. I think that's one of the things that, when we talk about spring training and what matters in spring training, I think pitchers get a chance to show more than batters do. I know their batters sometimes will be working on certain things. I remember going, and it's not quite as the same as the Arizona Fall League, but I remember going out to the Fall League one time, and the Reds had a prospect named Chris Dickerson. I don't know if you
remember that name.
A lot of power. Never really stuck in the bigs, but I talked to him. I said, okay, what are you working on? And he said, I'm working on hitting with 2 strikes. I was like, so you're intentionally getting behind in the count? 2 strikes? He's like, yep. He's like, I might swing.
He was doing that in the games. Like he was purposely just taking. So it wasn't like he went up there with the approach and said, I'm just, hey, every swing's a 2-strike swing.
Yep. He
said, I might get 3 2-strike swings.
No, he was saying, I'm going up there and I'm letting the count, like obviously not letting the pitcher know he was doing that.
Right.
And that's one of the things that
I feel like the pitchers know that. So like
at a certain point, you look at the scouting report and like, this guy's gone to 2 strikes every at bat.
Or what guys are in there just for defense and not allowed to swing a bat. And then I think what was it?
Miguel Vargas last year.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Was it Greinke that just kind of screwed with him?
Gotta love
throwing eephus pitches and just dropping hammers on them.
Yeah. So so there's that sometimes, but with pitchers, the Fall League is a chance to show you can get the good hitters out, and the same way with spring training, it's just a chance to show that you can get major league hitters out, even if they're not going full bore, right? Necessarily, even if they're maybe working on something. But I think with pitching, as much as probably more than hitting and position players, you can get a chance when you're facing another team to show what you can do. So I think McGreevy's a guy who has the talent, right, to show that he belongs. And if he makes the decision difficult where they have to decide, okay, well, this guy's making money, but this guy's clearly better than him, I think that's a conversation that comes into play. And, and again, if he's not in the opening day rotation, he could be in the 3rd week of the season rotation. So, I think you like for him and Quinn Matthews, and there's a long list of young guys who are in that conversation. I think there's a chance to really make an impression here.
I just keep going back. I'm really fascinated by that because they're the two strike approach thing that you mentioned, because I think we've heard stories over the years of other players who I think mentally can go up there and do that, or they will just spend an entire week and just say, hey, this week I'm only hitting opposite field.
Right.
That's all I'm doing. The whole time I'm just going to pretend like there's a runner on second and I need to get him over to third. And I don't care if there's, I'm leading off the inning or there's 2 outs and bases loaded. Like, that's what I'm doing. There are players that can go up there and they can mentally put themselves in that. And there are players that can't. And there are players that need to do that to themselves and put themselves physically in that situation.
And I think that's, again, anytime you talk to a talent evaluator, they will tell you the fall league is a great opportunity for young players. But don't read too much into the stats. Like, that's the caveat that goes with every single AFL stat, is don't read too much into it. That's why you'll see sometimes when they announce their all-star team, and then it's not necessarily the guys with the best numbers, right? Because it's the guys who showed the most when they had the opportunity, and the people making these picks, they understand what these guys are doing. But yeah, it's always fascinating to me, like the games behind the games. And yeah, swinging with 2 strikes was a thing that Chris Dicker said. And the funny thing is, the reason I talked to him that day is because he went like 3 for 4 or something like that. So he had a good day and he was kind of proud of it. And it was just, it's always, that's the fun of it.
Not a situation you'll put yourself in the regular season, though.
No.
Yeah.
But AFL,
that's fine for that. Other news in baseball today, you mentioned the Bobby Miller injury, but the big news is the Yankees, as they have announced for the first time in 5 decades, they are going to allow players to have well-groomed beards. A statement released earlier today from the managing general partner, Hal Steinbrenner, as his title there, saying, in recent weeks, I have spoken to a large number of former and current Yankees spanning several eras to elicit their perspectives on our long-standing facial hair and grooming policy, and I appreciate their earnest and varied feedback. These most recent conversations are an extension of ongoing internal dialogue that dates back several years. Ultimately, the final decision rests with me, and after great consideration, we will be amending our expectations to allow our players and uniform personnel to have well-groomed beards moving forward. It is the appropriate time to move beyond the familiar comfort of our former policy. 2025. 2025 is when they decided to finally do this.
I guess it's more appropriate than 2026, but
right. They saw Devin Williams and Paul Goldschmidt completely clean shaven, and they said, no, we need to change this.
Yeah, and good for them. I think it's funny because I wonder sometimes I wonder if a policy like this wouldn't have changed if earlier, if it didn't have to do with like the Red Sox, right? The Red Sox, those the great Red Sox Yankees rivalries in the early 2000s, and that was Boston's identity, right? They were the Kevin Millars, they were the scruffy guys, the Cowboys. I talked to Kevin Millar last summer for something on the anniversary of them winning the 2004 World Series, and he brought that up numerous times because it still meant something to him that they were this working class gruff, and the Yankees were the other side, the businessmen. And I sometimes wonder if admitting defeat and allowing for facial hair back then would have been almost admitting that the Red Sox beat you. Yeah. And so did something like that delay the implementation of a new policy for decades? I don't know, but it's kind of fascinating to me.
I former Yankee that you would have liked to see with facial hair. Now that you look back on it, do you wish we could have seen Derek Jeter with a beard?
I'd say other than Derek Jeter, because that's got to be the top of the list, because he was the poster child for that.
You hoping Aaron Judge grows it out?
I hope so.
Yeah, maybe
maybe not like Johnny Damon back in the day, but
that wouldn't be well groomed.
No, that's true. Yeah, no, I think that it's someone who hates shaving. That would be annoying.
As you mentioned, Goldschmidt will probably have his back by the time they wrap up practice or the game today.
Yeah.
if he hasn't already left the facility. I don't know what inning they're in, but I know the Yankees were playing today. So, yeah, whenever that would be the case, that would be that's probably already grown back by now. But yeah, the Yankees can have their facial hair now. Hey, Ryan, we have a newsletter here at Sports Hub STL. Make sure you signed up for the Sports Hub STL newsletter. You'll get all the latest content from the hub sent to your inbox twice a week, plus anytime sports news breaks, you'll be the first to know about Sports Hub STL events and new merchandise. And while you're on the site, take a look around at all of the St. Louis sports content, including recaps of daily programming, sports news, opinions, and more. Plus, if you like a little action on the games, Eric Sontag will have pregame betting analysis for every team that we cover here on Sports Hub STL. You just saw Eric as part of the Domesticated Gambler Show every Friday here on SportsHubSTL.com. Before we get out of here today, Ryan, I don't know if you saw power rankings that came out earlier today. Had the Cardinals at 28 in the power rankings for MLB.
Yeah, that's low. They're not 8,
right?
28 low. I mean,
White Sox are 30th. Rockies were 29. Cardinals were 28th. Teams above there: 27 Marlins, 28 the Angels, 26 the Angels, 25 the Pirates, 24 the A's, 23 the Blue Jays.
I will say the A's are going to be better than people think.
Yes,
they will be, just because their owner is who he is, and that's not a good thing. That doesn't mean the team's going to be awful. Who did that? I hadn't seen that.
That is from. I did not see who actually posted that. So
okay,
that's, yeah,
but, 28 is way too low. Yeah, I mean the Cardinals, especially because they still have Arenado, and because Sonny Gray said he wanted to stay, and because Wilson Contreras said he wanted to stay. I mean, you look at that rotation. The rotation, when you're talking about guys like Mike McGreevy, having to force his way into it, it's not a bad rotation, right? If Steven Matz stays healthy, which, like Nootbaar, has been an issue, but if he stays healthy, if Michaelis is better, throws strikes and that don't get knocked out of the ballpark as regularly, they could be solid, and then certainly not 28, not 10 to 15, but not 28.
From
That's
Chris here in the YouTube chat, 28th in the power rankings, thinking the Cardinals are going to be the feel-good team of MLB this year. I don't know about feel-good team. I think there are other stories that would make other teams feel-good teams for the years. Reds are actually one of those, I think, with Francona now as their manager. I think that would be that feel-good story.
Yeah, I was in on the Reds last year. I kind of picked because I write for the Opta Analysts website and kind of made our predictions. And one prediction I made was great. Tarek Skubal winning the AL Cy Young. Prediction I made for the Reds to win the NL Central didn't work out so well. But they still have the same pieces, right? And now all of a sudden you have Terry Francona there. They could be there. I think, the Cardinals, they could be a feel-good story, because the feel-good story, like, what does a feel-good story mean for this Cardinals team? It's not winning 95 games, but like a feel-good story could be that, Jordan Walker becomes the player they think he is. Mason Wynn takes another step forward. A lot of things could happen, and they're around 500. That could be a feel-good from where they came from at the end of last year, with Mosaic saying this was going to be reset.
I think feel good. I mean, if Arenado isn't here, then I think that makes it even more feel good. I think having a future Hall of Famer and one of the best third basemen of all time, I think might eliminate you from possibly being in the category of feel good.
Yeah, I mean that's true. We'll see. I mean, we'll see if he's here. I mean, all it takes is a couple injuries to. I know it feels like he's here long term, and maybe he is, but I mean things change so quickly in this game.
The longest 2 weeks are done now. Spring training is you've had your pitchers and catchers report, you had your players report, all of the all of the stuff's out of the way. I think every free agent is there. Who's left? Is there any?
I mean, there are lots of free agents left.
A big name free agents. I think all the big ones are gone.
And Alonso came back.
So I think we have games. We have games now. Dodgers and Cubs yesterday. There's a few more today. Cardinals, they play tomorrow. So we have games to talk about. We have baseball to talk about. It is over. We don't have to worry. We don't have to make up storylines anymore. We can actually let them play out on the field. So finally, we will have
Yes.
that to talk about tomorrow, and we will see you again next Friday.
Looking forward to it.
Brendan Schaefer and I will be coming to you tomorrow around 3:00 Central Time for the Cards Hub 365 on Saturday, supported by Gray Bar here every single day of the year, 365 days of the year. It is year round.
It's amazing.
We're already trying to figure out who's going to host the Christmas show. We will.
It's not me. I'm not. Nope. Just put that out there now.
We'll get there when we'll get there when the time comes. We appreciate all of you for tuning in yet again to another edition of Cards Hub 365 here on Sports Hub STL. We'll talk to you tomorrow, everybody.